So my wife has been encouraging me to say something like, welcome back to another fireside chat, even though it's spring and plenty warm. Welcome back. We are going to be studying planes and axes from the articular system, chapter 3. So let me explain the planes first. You should have been introduced to these in an anatomy class, but when it comes to motions, don't let it confuse you. It is fairly simple once you figure it out. So I'm going to start with the planes. So if I perform shoulder flexion, hip flexion, knee flexion, extensions, that is in a sagittal plane. So I'll turn sideways. Sagittal plane. Sagittal plane. Next is the frontal plane. So it's your abduction, your adductions. And last is transverse. So that's any type of rotational movement. So earlier we talked about lateral rotation, medial rotation. So the head of the humerus is rotating in a transverse plane. Trunk rotation, transverse plane. Now, an axis works in a way that is similar to a door hinge, for example. The pin that goes through a door hinge allows it to swing open and closed. So there are some rules here that you can follow. If I perform a motion in the sagittal plane, my axis of rotation, because the head of the humerus is rotating on the scapula, I have a frontal axis. So sagittal plane, frontal axis. Think about this. If I put my hinge, my pin, this way, it's going to block the flexion and extension in the sagittal plane, but it will allow me to perform abduction. So it is a plane, a frontal plane followed by a sagittal axis. So always true, there's no exceptions. The next is the transverse plane by a vertical axis. So lateral and medial rotation. If my pin goes through the joint in this direction, it's only going to allow me to laterally rotate, medially rotate with a vertical axis. So let me ask you, let's look at the hip. If I perform a sagittal motion, so hip flexion, my axis must be frontal. If my axis becomes sagittal, my motion, my plane, becomes frontal. If I have a vertical axis, I can only rotate now. So it is lateral rotation, medial rotation. Practice these. It takes a little while to get your mind wrapped around this. Work with one another in class. Watch these videos. Practice. Take something to use as a pen, a dowel. You can use a pencil. Just be safe. Don't hesitate to ask me questions. Kinesiology is a practice type of course, not sit and read. Yes, you have to do your readings because that's your guide, but you want to know these motions as thoroughly as possible, so practicing them, teaching one another, that's how you truly learn. I'll have more videos coming. Thank you.